The restaurant fell into an uneasy silence. Crystal glasses clinked softly on polished tables, but every conversation in the room had slowed, then stopped. Near the entrance, a tall security guard stood blocking the doorway. In front of him stood a young black man in worn sneakers and a faded jacket. His clothes were clean, but clearly old. His hands rested calmly at his sides, but the guard's posture was rigid. "You heard me," the guard said coldly. "This place isn't for people like you." A few customers turned their chairs toward the entrance. Phones slowly appeared in hands. Someone began recording. The young man didn't move. He looked around the elegant restaurant, white tablecloths, expensive wine bottles, quiet classical music floating through the air. And then he spoke softly. "I'm just here for dinner." The guard scoffed. "Dinner?" he said loudly, making sure everyone could hear. "You think you can afford dinner here?" A few uncomfortable chuckles echoed from nearby tables. A waitress stood frozen behind the counter. Another customer whispered to his friend, "This is going online." The guard pointed toward the door. "Leave, now!" But the young man didn't move. He simply stood there, quiet, calm, watching. The room seemed to hold its breath. The guard's hand hovered inches from the young man's shoulder. Some customers leaned forward. Others raised their phones higher. A couple near the window whispered nervously, "Is he really going to throw him out?" The young man's face remained unreadable. No anger, no fear, just a quiet stillness. The guard took one step closer. "Last warning." The restaurant manager had just stepped out of the kitchen, drawn by the noise. He hadn't seen the young man yet, but he was walking toward the entrance, and in a few seconds, everything would change. The guard's hand began to reach forward, and the moment froze. 3 hours earlier. On the edge of the city, in a small, aging apartment building, the young man sat at a narrow wooden table. His name was Jordan Carter, 19 years old, quiet, observant. Outside, the sound of traffic echoed through cracked windows. Inside, the apartment was modest, bare walls, old furniture, a single lamp glowing above the table. Across from him sat his mother. She worked double shifts at a hospital laundry service. Her hands were rough from years of work. "You sure you want to go there tonight?" she asked gently. Jordan nodded. "It's important." She studied him carefully. "You don't have to prove anything to anyone." Jordan didn't answer right away. He simply folded a piece of paper carefully and slipped it into his jacket pocket. "I know," he said quietly, but there was something in his eyes that suggested this night meant more than dinner. Jordan had grown up learning one simple truth. People often decided who he was before he ever spoke. At school, teachers sometimes assumed he struggled academically, but Jordan finished assignments faster than anyone. At a local grocery store job interview, the manager once said casually, "We're looking for someone a little more professional." Jordan understood what that meant. But Jordan never argued. He observed, listened, learned. His teachers slowly realized something unusual about him. His mind worked differently. Complex problems that left others frustrated seemed almost simple to him. Mathematics, logic, patterns, they came naturally. Late at night, while the city slept, Jordan studied economics and business online. He analyzed companies, markets, investment strategies. It wasn't just a hobby, it was discipline, quiet, relentless discipline. But most people never noticed because Jordan never bragged. He never tried to impress anyone. He simply worked, quietly. Over the past 6 months, something had happened that almost no one knew about. Jordan had started investing online. Small amounts at first. Money he saved from working after school, from taking extra shifts during summers, from spending every dollar carefully. His mother didn't know. His friends didn't know. No one knew. He quietly studied the market, watched emerging companies, understood trends, and slowly his investments grew. First small returns, then larger ones. Within a year, the amount he started with had multiplied several times over. Jordan told no one. He just kept working, kept studying, kept learning. And 3 months ago, he made a decision. He decided to buy a restaurant. The same restaurant his mother once dreamed of working at. The same restaurant he had visited once as a child and been turned away at the door. The same restaurant in the most exclusive part of the city. He completed the entire process quietly. The paperwork, the legal documents, the ownership transfer. No one knew who the new owner was. The corporate documents showed only a name, an investment firm's name. Tonight, Jordan had decided he would visit his restaurant for the first time, without any announcement, without any fanfare, just as an ordinary customer, to see what his place was really like. The restaurant was still silent. The guard's hand hovered near Jordan's shoulder. "Last chance," the guard muttered. Jordan slowly reached into his jacket pocket. Several customers leaned forward. "See," someone whispered, "he's about to make trouble." But Jordan only removed a folded envelope. He held it calmly. "I'm not here to cause problems," he said quietly. The guard laughed. "Then leave." At that moment, the restaurant manager stepped closer and finally looked at Jordan. The manager stopped walking. His expression shifted instantly. Confusion, then shock, then something close to fear. "Wait," the manager said slowly. The guard looked back. "What?" The manager stepped closer to Jordan, his voice suddenly careful. "Sir, may I see that?" Jordan handed him the envelope. Inside were several official documents, contracts, legal confirmations, ownership transfer forms. The manager read the first page, then the second. His face went pale. The room watched silently. Phones were still recording. The guard frowned. "What is it?" The manager looked up slowly, his voice barely above a whisper. This restaurant," he swallowed, "was purchased today." The guard blinked. "So?" The manager looked at Jordan and spoke carefully. "He's the new owner." No one moved. The restaurant felt frozen. A glass slipped from someone's hand and tapped softly against a table. The guard stepped back slowly. "Wait, what?" Jordan didn't raise his voice. He didn't smile. He simply stood calmly. "I scheduled a quiet visit tonight, to see the place in person." The manager lowered his head slightly. I didn't know you were coming tonight, sir." Across the restaurant, the phones were still recording, but now the whispers had changed. Did he say owner? That kid? The guard looked completely lost. Jordan finally turned toward him. "You were doing your job, but assumptions can be dangerous." The manager straightened his posture immediately. He turned to the guard. "You need to step outside for a moment." The guard hesitated. "But now." The authority in the manager's voice was unmistakable. The guard walked toward the exit. Jordan turned toward the restaurant. His voice remained quiet, but every person in the room listened. "I didn't come here tonight to embarrass anyone. I came here because I believe this place can be better." He looked around at the customers. At its best, a restaurant should welcome people, not judge them. The manager nodded quickly. "Yes, sir." Jordan took a slow breath. "Tomorrow, we'll start making some changes." 6 months later, the restaurant looked the same from the outside, but inside, something had changed. The staff had grown more diverse, the atmosphere warmer. People from every background filled the tables. Jordan rarely sat at the front. Most nights he observed quietly from a corner table, listening, learning, ensuring the place lived up to the values he believed in. Some customers still remembered the viral video, the moment when a quiet young man had been judged and then revealed the truth. But for Jordan, the lesson had always been simple. The world often judges people in seconds, based on clothes, skin, assumptions.
But dignity doesn't come from appearances, and intelligence rarely announces itself loudly. Sometimes the quietest person in the room is the one who sees the most. And sometimes respect begins the moment we stop assuming we know who someone really is. Late one night, Jordan stood outside the restaurant. The cold air touched his face. Inside, the sounds of laughter and conversation floated out. An elderly woman approached with her family. She hesitated at the door. Her clothes were simple, old. Jordan opened the door for her, looked at her, and smiled. "Please, come in," he said quietly. "You're welcome here."